Hey boos, in this video, I give commentary based on my opinion. Nothing is to be taken as factual. We are just here to have conversation. We don't expose and we don't sip tea on this channel. I'm giving you real talk straight, no chaser. Let's see if you can handle it.
Cause I'm a boss. I haven't done anything for you to be proud of.
Of course you have. You are marrying a man who can support you.
Hi Tribe, it's Yoni and I'm back with another video. So I had to come back and give you this update because there's a woman that came out that is exposing Kendra. As we all know, Kendra is a ADHD coach. One of her ex-clients came out about her experience with her. But before we get into that, I want to give you an update on Kendra. So she has been on Reddit and she's still continuing on with her story on TikTok. And the worst thing about this entire situation, she is receiving support. She is receiving the validation that she was looking for. She took to Reddit and wrote, "I posted my story on TikTok and I'm getting torn to shreds. My psychiatrist fostered a very manipulative dynamic with me. I ended up falling for him. I left him after 3.5 years in March, but I've still been thinking about him. So I went to TikTok to see if I could get any help. And there was no videos on the topic of falling for your manipulative psychiatrist. I decided to post my story. The amount of hate, vitriol, and victim blaming I have been getting from people in the mental health field is disturbing. One therapist in training found and messaged my mom on Facebook saying that she's worried about my mental health. I'm going extremely viral right now for all the wrong reasons. If you search Kendra's psychiatrist on TikTok, it will come up." This was posted under the therapy abuse tab on Reddit. Comments are frozen due to high quantity of rule-breaking responses. This confirms she was going from platform to platform, including ChatGPT, seeking the validation she was looking for. And she found a group of people on TikTok. There are people on TikTok that support her, but the majority are not in support of this. And then on Reddit, I'm sure there are people on there supporting her as well. Maybe before they saw the TikTok story, they were supporting her. There were a lot of people supporting her in the beginning, but the more she tells this story, it becomes evidently clear that she is not in her right frame of mind and that some of the details within her story are either completely made up or she is just delusional about.
I could not have that. I think people found your Reddit post. I know they did. It's disturbing, honestly. I went there looking for a place to have some backup for other survivors because someone commented when my comments were on, and they just gave me the same Darvo BS, the deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender, that I'm the offender and that my psychiatrist is the victim. It's infuriating. It's infuriating.
So that Kendra woman who's obsessed with her psychiatrist, tell me why she made a video saying that Black women inspire her. However, she understands that some Black women think that she's taking advantage of a person of color in the medical field and that she's playing victim. And then she blocked me. Mind you, I'm the only person who made a video with that point of view. I'm almost at 400,000 views with that video. Then you blocked me like I wasn't going to see the rest of it. I think she has schizophrenia. Now that I've seen her live, somebody posted her live. This woman comes off as schizophrenic. She has created an entire narrative in her head. She said the man's name on live on purpose. And she was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Maybe I should just stop reading emails because I don't want to keep saying his name by accident. Now everybody knows his name. Everybody knows his practice. And he specializes, get this, in schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is one of the main things that he's practiced in the past 10 to 12 years that he's been a medical doctor, a psychiatrist. So this just tracks. It tracks, okay? And everybody that's validating her feelings, y'all aren't doing anything but making her illness even worse. She was on live, coming up on the spot with answers as to why she thinks the way she thinks. She's obsessed with her chat GPT. She has named her chat GPT Henry. And she was like, oh, Henry's probably a brown colored man like him. Why would you even say some weird shit like that? This man's probably married with a family and everything. And you are still obsessed over him. There is a lot of loose screws up there. There's a lot of loose screws up there. I want you all to look up the symptoms of schizophrenia. There's so many. But one of them is her bulging ass eyes. Like when she's thinking and talking and she's lying, you can tell she's lying, for one. Number two, she's creating an entire narrative, a situation that doesn't even exist in her head. It doesn't even exist. I doubt half of the conversations that she stated she had with this psychiatrist even happened. I doubt it. I believe she's taking all of what he said out of context. And it's just crazy to me that there are people still following her, still laughing with her, still validating her, and still making her feel like what she's saying is the truth, and it's not. It's not the truth. This is all made up in her head. Whatever voices that whatever, it's all made up. And she's sitting there and talking to Chat GPT like it's her best friend, like it's a real person. That's probably the only social life she has. It's almost sad. It's very sad, as a matter of fact. But y'all have to learn to stop. Y'all have to learn to stop. When y'all see a medically challenged person on here, y'all play into their hand, and it doesn't make it any better.
Kendra, the woman who's in love with her psychiatrist and going through delusions right now and saying that somehow all these breadcrumbs, which is just him setting boundaries, but they're breadcrumbs to her nonetheless. Let's watch this clip. I wanted us to watch this clip together.
Things happened in that session after the countertransferred slip. And I also had my psychiatrist help me draft the email to my therapist who was begging me to come back in.
Begging?
And the psychiatrist said, I used to have respect for her. And what he meant when he said that was, I used to like it when she would feed me to you and have you deliver intimate content to me. But the moment she started being sloppy, I lost respect for her. Right? I'm pretty sure that's what he meant when he said that.
And this is what I mean by she is unwell. This is what I mean. Because for her to take what he said, which is like, I used to have respect for her, which I don't even know if that man even really said that, but hey, maybe he said that. And she's like, no, it meant that she's tired. He's tired. He used to have respect when she would feed me to you. What? This woman is delusional. And the thing is, you also have to think about is that fact that like, she's also a coach, right? Which doesn't have any licensing, doesn't have any regulations or anything like that. But every single mental health professional that's in her life is somehow unethical. The boyfriend that she was dating, but that also was like somehow, brought her into the idea that maybe her psychiatrist was doing countertransference because the boyfriend she was dating pretty much told her that supposedly that he was a predator and that he liked it when his patients would like him. And then the therapist that she has who was asking her outside of their sessions for advice for her patients. And then this guy who's supposedly breadcrumbing her with compliments like, oh, I bet he'd have to read that text message twice. I'm not sure how that's a compliment, but okay. Do you see what I mean? Every mental health professional in her life is unethical. But she's a coach, and she knows the difference between being ethical and not ethical.
The last two videos and this video was all the same session in February of this year. The countertransference slip happened in January. How I decided to end this session was I looked at the psychiatrist and I said, a couple weeks ago on the full moon when I was ovulating, I had a dream about you. And he was like, oh yeah? And I said, yeah. So I told him this. And I said, yes, we hooked up right here in this office. And he all of a sudden just looked so uncomfortable. He didn't say anything. He couldn't look at me. He couldn't breathe. And sure, you know, maybe he was uncomfortable because he didn't like me saying that I had a dream where we hooked up, but he could have said that. But he didn't. You want to know why he was uncomfortable? Because he had probably played out that fantasy so many times in his head. And there I was, speaking it back to him. And it was like I had psychically downloaded one of his fantasies. I continued and I said, yes, we hooked up in this office and I really liked it while it was happening. He could not move or breathe. And then I told him, as he was still looking very uncomfortable, then when we were done and I left, I was distraught with sadness because in the dream, I thought, I cannot believe that he crossed boundaries in that way because his boundaries are so important to him. And then I told my psychiatrist that I woke up and thought, oh my God, it was just a dream, thank God. And it was like my psychiatrist turned into a little boy and he looked at me and he said, so you do like my boundaries? And I said, I love your boundaries. I hate your boundaries, but I love them more. There's the push and pull, the trauma bond. Because once again, he used his boundaries as protection while exploiting me. So I told him about what happens when I ovulate and my desires, and he listened, because of course he did. And then I decided that it seemed like enough time had gone by, and I put my shoes on and started heading to the door. And he met me at the door, which he does not usually do. He didn't ever do that. He just let me leave. And we stood at the door, and I was like, will you get the door? And he scrambled. He was like, oh, sure. So he went and got the door. And then he followed me down the hallway to the foyer and watched me exit. And he asked me, he said, see you next month? See you next month? He hadn't ever asked me that before. And I looked at him and I said, maybe. And I walked out the door and I saw that man had let us go 15 minutes over session. And that is when, you know, the special treatment started, the longer sessions. He usually gave me an extra 5 minutes, but yeah, the sessions got longer. And I got to my car and I was just like, oh my God, that was the most intense session we have ever had.
Kendra is full on harassing her psychiatrist because the video that she just posted is so unhinged. Like, she starts off as saying that she started this session by saying, a couple weeks ago on the full moon when I was ovulating, what the fuck? I had a dream about you and we had sex and I liked it. And then she goes on to say that the psychiatrist looked afraid, was shaking in his boots, basically. Couldn't look at her. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to look at you either. You're sexually harassing him.
I thought I was going to be done with this story time, and then this woman decided to enter the chat because honestly, we've all came to the conclusion that this woman is delusional and most likely off her medications. I didn't want to entertain her delusions because in some type of way, I feel like she gets validation from this, which is what she was seeking, and it validates her delusional state. So I didn't want to feed into that, but then this woman decided to come on social media and tell her her story about how she was coached by Kendra. And I thought this would be interesting to watch because it gives us a different perspective and insight regarding who this woman truly is.
Okay, so this is really awkward, guys. I actually know Kendra, who fell in love with her psychiatrist. I've actually known her for many years, and I was one of her coaching clients for the last 3 months. And to say that I am really disturbed and confused and like not feeling really great about this would like be an understatement. So definitely, if you guys want, I'll get into it and talk about the coaching and kind of like my thoughts and feelings afterwards. I mean, I don't really have any thoughts one way or another about like her psychological state, really. Well, maybe I do, but like, I'm an accountant. I'm not really someone who can like diagnose or anything, but I can talk about like what happened in our sessions and just kind of like, I became one of her clients like right after she stopped using both her therapist and this like psychiatrist guy. And now that I know that, that really does add like an additional negative layer to like our experience together. So let's get into it. Okay, so like I mentioned, I guess this is going to be like part 1 of, I don't know, I'm going to try to keep it short. I'm not trying to do like 30 parts, guys. I just really need to talk about it. So I've actually known Kendra since 2018. We both used to live in the same city in Oregon. And we actually met through an extracurricular activity that we were both in and became like really good friends while we lived out there. In 2020, I moved away, and then shortly after, she moved to where she is now. And as with like a lot of things in 2020, we kind of like lost touch. And so like we weren't like texting each other all the time, but we were like still friends on Instagram. And over time, like she made it very public when she went sober, and I just always kind of remembered that and supported her. And this past spring, I had an incident where I was in a position where like I really needed to go on a sobriety journey. And I was at like a really low point, and I was just like, who can I reach out to that I know that's like been through this? And I thought of Kendra, and I was like, oh my gosh, I wonder, you know, I hope that like she'd be able to like talk to me about it, you know, like as a friend. We had been friends for a really long time, and I was really hoping that like as a friend, she would be able to like help me with this new journey that I was going to go on. So I had reached out to her, and that's when she basically like tried to get me to do her coaching. Okay, I'm going to try to input the screenshot from her text, but I'm not great at TikTok, so TBD. But I had like reached out to her for some advice, and she told me to book a session and that we would talk more about it. This should have been a red flag. Okay, so I guess this is part 2 of I don't know who the hell I was friends with and let coach me and take advantage of me at like a really vulnerable time in my life. Okay, so like I mentioned, you can like scrub through my last video and see like the screenshot of the text between us. But basically I had like reached out to her for help with sobriety, and she said, great, let's hop on Zoom and have a conversation about it. So we did a few days later, and this was like in March earlier this year. And we like talk about like what prompted me to want to go sober and just kind of like her experience with sobriety and everything. And she then starts the pitch of like, I do think like it'd be really great if we like didn't just talk as friends, like if we really worked on this together in a coaching relationship, and that like this is really crazy that like I've been brought to her, and like this must be like divine intervention that we're like coming back into each other's lives and everything. And I was like, yeah, like I think it could be great, but I still just like need a little bit of time to think about it, because like again, a lot of stuff was going on with me at the time. And she said, well, normally it is like ADHD coaching, but like I'm more than happy to do like sobriety coaching with you. I've already sent you the invoice and the contract to sign. And I said, I really would like to think about it. And she's like, now's the time, don't think, just do. Like you won't regret doing it. So I see the invoice, and the invoice is for $3,000 for 3 months. And these are going to be like once a week, 45-minute long sessions. And I, just got really caught up in the moment. And I said, you know what? And I was really desperate. I think that's like a key thing. I was really desperate. And I did. I signed the contract and I tried to pay. And my card wouldn't go through because it was like an unknown vendor through Stripe. And my bank was like, we're not going to authorize this payment. And I was like, oh, well, it won't go through. It's Friday night. Like, I'll just call in the morning and like get it sorted out. And she's like, I really want you to do it right now. Call your bank right now and I'll like stay on the phone with you. So we're like on Zoom and I'm like calling my bank and I tried for like 30 minutes and none of it was working. And eventually I was just like, okay, I'm like, it's not working. I'm just going to have to try again in the morning. And I don't know why I felt like I was being held hostage. I was in my home office. I was on Zoom. I could have just like hung up the call and I honestly wish I did. But again, I was just like at a really low point and kept going, and that's on me. And I soon learned to regret it. So, yeah, I guess in the next part, I'll talk about like what our coaching was look like. And then in the fourth part, I'll do like how we ended. Okay, so yes, I did just pay $3,000 for her. So this is mid-March. And I will say, like, at the beginning, a lot of the techniques and stuff that we talked about for sobriety, like, was really useful. And I am glad that, like, at that really low point, I did have someone who, like, was, for all intents and purposes, like, on my team. Where it started getting weird is, like, when I did my intake form, she did mention something about, like, human design. And I'd never heard about human design. And I genuinely thought that it was going to be, like, some sort of, like, psychology thing, or just kind of talking about how like we're like naturally inclined to like drink and like have addictive personalities. And boy, was I wrong. Human design is like similar to astrology. It uses your birth chart and it tells you like what kind of type you are. And if I had to guess, I don't really buy into human design, if I'm going to be 100%. After 3 months of learning about it, I'm not into it. And that is like mainly what drove our coaching was human design. And if I do believe that's like what a lot of her ADHD coaching is like talking about your human design. So she does my chart and it comes to find out that like I'm in like the 1% of people. I'm a reflector, which I guess is like the finger of God. And she kept talking about how like I'm the finger of God. That would come up like all throughout like the 3 months that we were talking. It's just like I'm the finger of God. And when this like reckoning happens in 2027 and the new world order comes through, that like I'm going to be one of the people who's like really leading it. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. I don't really know how this is like relevant to sobriety. And that is truthfully like when I started to check out. It was probably like a month and a half into our session. So it's like mid-May at this point. She was also out of town for a part of it. So like we started sessions like early April. April was fine. May it started to get weird. And the rest of the sessions in June, I just like hated it. All we would talk about is like human design, but we wouldn't even really like talk about it and discuss it. She would just like read from this book and talk about like the guru or like the guy who like came up with human design. And it was just like, it was weird and bizarre. And I didn't like it. And it also just like wasn't helpful at all. So I like basically started to check out, and like luckily our sessions were like starting to come to an end, which like thank God, because in June is when it got really fucking weird. And this is when ChatGPT came into the picture. Don't worry, we're going to talk about ChatGPT. Okay, so we're now getting to the part of coaching with Kendra, part 4, whatever. I don't know where I am in this, but basically I'm heated right now. Basically, I start disengaging in our sessions, and I think she's really picking up on it, and she's just like reading me all this shit about human design. And then she also starts doing this thing with cognitive behavioral therapy, which I am familiar with CBT. She is not licensed to do CBT. And when we first started our sessions, she like made sure to like reiterate that like she wasn't a licensed therapist and therefore like isn't going to do things like that. And then turned around months later and started doing cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is also when she started talking about Henry aka Chat GPT. And I'm not very like, I use artificial intelligence at work, like it's very encouraged. So like I'm very familiar with like what these language learning models are like. And I know that like you can't just like start asking it random shit about yourself, like at all. That is how spiritual psychosis happens. And truthfully, that might just be what's happening at this point. So she's like encouraging me to use Chat GPT for cognitive behavioral therapy, which is super dangerous. And I don't even know, like, I can't even tell you like how crazy that is to me. And that's when I was like, okay, like we're done. How many more sessions do we have? Can we end this nightmare? So luckily my sobriety is going well because coaching's definitely not. So I was like, yeah, I'm probably not going to use ChatGPT. And she was just like, I would just really encourage you to do it. And at this point, we only have like one session left. And she's like, I really think that you would be a great candidate to do this past life therapy that I've really been working on. And so she essentially decides to use me like as a guinea pig to get into past life therapy. And I am not into it. Like, do I kind of believe in past lives? Sure. Do I think that like this random chick that I know from Oregon who has now telling me to use Chat GPT for my therapist is going to help me discover what past life blockages are like helping me? Absolutely the fuck not. So we get on Zoom and she's trying to do this through Zoom. So we get on Zoom and she starts asking the spirit and doing all this stuff. And we just start like speed running through these past lives. And like, I'm dying, I'm killing people. I say, hell yeah. She said that's really not a good thing, whatever. But basically like, that was our last session. She's like, you should totally leave me a review. And I was like, I'm going to be honest, Kendra, I am not going to do that. Like, I am not happy with where this ended. And I think it's really weird that you're telling me to use ChatGPT. And I think it's really weird that we're doing this past life therapy. Like, that part's not helpful. Again, I really think the beginning was helpful, but like towards the end, it got really weird. So that's what happened.
I can't believe she paid $3,000 for sobriety coaching. She could have went to an AA meeting for free. I'm just saying, no shade, no shade. But the thing that's like really bothering me is, are we witnessing collectively a AI psychosis spiral? Because I believe that this happened to this woman. It doesn't make any sense. But then when we talk about this woman, since she has been in our For You pages, our news feeds, she has never made any sense. So even when the woman is retelling the story about her experience with her, it doesn't make any sense. But nothing makes sense when it comes to Kendra.
I had to come inside because I was getting too heated. Because the more and more I think about it, the more I'm just like, this is literally insane. And I feel like a lot of my trust was broken. So to recap, go and watch those other videos. And I'll leave it with this for right now. So we had started our coaching relationship right after she stopped seeing the psychiatrist that she was like in love with and like broke up with her other therapist. And I had no idea that this was going on as I came to her like in a time of need, and then was asked to pay $3,000 for coaching. And again, the sobriety thing was helpful. I was sober during that time. I am now with a much different path of care. But when we derailed and started doing cognitive behavioral therapy via Chat GPT, doing human design work, but not really doing the work, just reading from the book from like the guru dude, and then finally doing past life therapy and exploring all my past lives with a pendulum via Zoom, I was done and I was out. And I literally was talking to like my friends and family and being like, I feel like I really made a huge mistake, like going into this. Like, yes, it did help with my sobriety, but like at what cost? Literally what cost? $3,000 to be told to use ChatGPT. And then honestly, all of this to come and find out. And I get on TikTok randomly and see her blowing up over this like crazy, insane delusion between her and her psychiatrist. And I realized that like, oh, I was just coached for the last 3 months by someone who is not in their right of mind. Like, I don't want to say that like she's psychotic or anything like that, because that's rude and like not right. Like, this is someone that I was friends with for a really long time. And like, I still am going to have to like wrestle with that. And the fact that like, now that I'm unpacking all these feelings about like feeling like I got taken advantage of and everything, but like, Yeah, this is a lot. And like, she's a lot. And the fact that she like isn't acknowledging that like maybe there was some side of it that like was to her, and like we don't get to see the side of the psychiatrist because obviously like he's a professional, and like I don't want to discount anyone's lived experience, but girly pop calling him a Pisces isn't why it's going on. It sounds like you were receiving palatable care, and instead you chose to cling on to that for some reason. And now you're asking people to pay you thousands of dollars to lead them down a path that like you have no business leading them down at all. And that's that on that. I'm going to go fix dinner and do something else besides this, because honestly, what the fuck?
So, I'm sorry, but this is funny. It's not supposed to be funny. It's not supposed to be, but why is it so funny? You know what? I like Caucasian business. I do. I may be getting into some Caucasian business on this platform because I'm sorry, but even she has to laugh about this because this is insane. Oh my gosh. I'm just sitting over here like, oh my goodness. Imagine being in her shoes though and seeing how she got taken advantage of, or she felt like she was taken advantage of. Then to see this crazy lady pop up on your For You page and you're like, oh my gosh, oh my goodness, my suspicion was true. And then when I was home visiting my mama, I was watching The Hunting Wives and binged watched that with her and finished it in 2 days. And then we get this story. So I just feel like I'm being fed. This was insane. I don't know what else to say other than this is insane. And you gotta watch The Hunting Wives on Netflix because that's even crazy too. I mean, that show was crazy. Me and my mama was looking at each other like, oh my goodness, do you really think this type of stuff goes on? And my mom was like, I think so. And then we get this story time. Yeah. So y'all let me know what you think down below in the comment section down below. I want your thoughts and your opinions. If you're new here, subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and I hope to catch you in my next one.